My first date with my wife was the Aquatennial milk carton races. Well, actually, that's not true. Our first official date was a little sort of hole-in-the-wall place called the Malt Shop. Burgers, fries kind of place, you know. I mean, it was a first date. You got to walk into these kind of things with some caution. A low-pressure situation. I mean, first dates, you don't want to be trapped somewhere with someone like an Aquatennial milk carton race. But what you do is you go on a date, you listen to the person, you talk, you try and find some common ground. You try and figure out if the like that you have actually might become something else. And never one to ante up anything too quickly. Okay, that's an illusion I have. We were talking about food and cooking, and it sort of morphed into a conversation about household chores, and I have no real idea how we got there. Like I said, you don't want to ante up too quickly, but you also want us to keep it a little romantic. But there we were talking about cooking and laundry. Anyway, my beloved said she didn't love to cook, and I said, well, I really do. I could cook every night. I really like it. I find it really soothing. And she said, yeah, I find that about laundry. I said, oh, I hate doing laundry. She's like, no, I really like it. I find it soothing. And in the malt shop, not wanting to have a very high-pressure date, the next thing out of my mouth is, oh, well, I like to cook and you like to do laundry. We should get married. Well, Jesus this morning is trying to keep things a little calm too. He is saying goodbye to his friends yet again. He has died, and now he's back and wanting them to know that the advocate is coming. Another aspect of God is on the way. These disciples never need to feel that aloneness that they felt right after his death again, because he says he has to leave, but another will come. Another will be in his place. And Jesus says, if you want to be a loving person, if you want to step into a deeper relationship with Jesus and this advocate, keep the commandments. And we know that even if you don't know all the commandments, even if you're sort of like this nominal person who sort of flirts around with Christianity or is trying to find a better way or a good orderly direction, or all the ways that people gather around this altar at St. Mark's, we know that one of the things that sort of runs across all major religions, and really hopefully all the ways that we deal with one another as non-religious people, love someone how you would want to be loved. Care for them in the way that you want to be cared for. We all know the golden rule. So Jesus is saying, if you want to be in relationship with Jesus, keep that commandment. Pay attention. Love someone the way you'd want to be treated. And it's not a bad way to go through life, obviously. I think that one of the things that we're doing right now is an act of love by staying home, by not seeing each other, even if we are just down the street from each other. I had a fabulous conversation with one of our 90-year-olds the other day. She's in a living facility. She's not in high care, but every night at 5 o'clock, she has arranged with all of her floor mates to open up their door and set a chair in their doorway, and they have cocktail hour. Always leave it to the Episcopalian, right? But that's how they greet. And then now they've gotten to the point where they have their beverage of choice, and they also have a little bit of singing together. So they're staying connected, but they're also honoring the staying apart. And if we are doing that, if we are staying apart from one another, if we're really trying to take care of ourselves in this way and take care of somebody else, we're loving someone who we've never met. And that's an amazing concept. We've been told to think that it's our families and our schools and our communities that we know that we should love. I think that's the easy part. But to love someone you've never met before, to take care of somebody you've never seen before and you may never see ever, is an amazing thing. And that's what we're called to in this time, to do it on a worldwide basis. And I think that's the first time we've been ever called to do that in our lifetimes. And I have to tell you, it extends to when we're outdoors. A member of our community who lives on the hill is got compromised immune system. And the lack of people wearing masks who are out riding their bikes or running has kept them indoors. No walking or exercising for this person because of other people's choices. And I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe she's overstating it, because in my neighborhood, we're able to stay apart from each other, and people are really conscious of moving away from each other. It's not so much happening right here, and I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, let's remember that. Let's remember that even though you're not worried, there's other people who want to stretch their legs, who have heart conditions, who are in treatment for diseases. We just need to keep wearing our masks, and we need to stay away from each other right now. And I know it feels like an obligation, but it's not. I think it is an act of love. We accompany each other, not knowing how we're going to follow the way. We're not sure how that good, orderly direction plays out. But it is part of the dance that Jesus is talking about in this gospel, of being with him and the Father and acknowledging it. That weird John language of I'm in the Father and the Father is in me, and it just gets really complicated. But it is a way of staying in relationship with one another. We know this. We know this on a cellular level. We learned this at church. We learned this at Sunday school. We learned this in philosophy class. We learned that we are deeply connected to one another. By following the words in this gospel, by being members of this community, no matter what you believe or what you don't believe, we do this. It is deeply embedded in us. Caroline Lewis, who's a writer I often read, says this about this accompaniment, this way that we're connected to one another. She says this: we have done this accompaniment, and it's not simply something that we do, but it embodies us. It embodies who Jesus was for his disciples and who the Spirit was for his believers, both then and now. We embody accompaniment, commit to it, and do accompaniment because this was who Jesus was as a leader. This accompaniment is central to Jesus' mission and vision, in part because accompaniment is born out of relationship, and we are called people to maintain that relationship. Beginning and encouraging relationships, therefore, appears to be a hallmark of who Jesus was, who we understand him to be in his ministry. It's the way he leads. This is why abiding is so crucial in this reading. We hear the call that God abides with us. And by definition, we hear abide in a whole lots of different ways. I asked this on the Rector's Forum. Go into a small breakout room and talk about abide. And everybody had a different direction of it. They all had computers, so they all looked up the definition. And by definition, abide means to tolerate, to withstand, await, or accept. But this abiding is deeper than that. As people who follow the way, as us who are here gathered around this altar, how we step into this. It's one of the reasons that we stay home, is that we're trying to stay away from each other and still abide, because it's deeper than just physically being with each other. Physically having that accompaniment is profound in what we're trying to do. We're so deeply connected. We're trying to obey a tenet that says we should abide by being together, and yet it's more than that. It's deeper than that. We're doing it because it is the fact that we love one another. If we abide with God, if we're deeply connected to each other, one of the ways that I describe abide to little kids is that I talk about when I was a little girl, I would lay underneath a tree in my parents' yard. I would kind of duck under there and hide from probably my brothers, but there I was sort of hanging out. And when you first would do that in the spring, when it was finally warm enough to go outside and lay on the ground, maybe dry enough too, you just basically saw sticks in the trees. But the next, even couple days later, they were fuzzy green sticks. And after that, they were leafy green sticks. And finally, it was a canopy that you couldn't even see the sky. That's what abiding is. We are all enmeshed with one another. We are all obligated to one another. We are all physically touching each other through droplets that move through the air. We are called to try and abide in love, but not in space. We give each other a break. For older people, I always talk about a practice nobody does anymore. I've never done it. I've never seen anyone do it, but I had a friend of mine whose grandmother used to make lace, basically lace, handmade lace. The practice of it is called tatting, and it's literally having a little shuttle, a little wooden shuttle or a little plastic shuttle, and you make a series of knots. We're all tied together. We're all obligated to one another. That is what is the heart of the story of the Paraclete. The advocate is coming again to knit us together, to be a part of. And the ways that we knit together are of physical nature, of gathering, and we have to change that. It doesn't mean that the heart and the soul and the matter of what we're doing is different. It's still all there. It's a series of knots tying us together, because it is what is happening in the Godhead. There's a relationship between the Creator God, the Redeemer Jesus, and the Sanctifier, the Holy Spirit. They are all one with another. They too are in a relationship, and we too are in relationships, perhaps not physically with one another right now, but together, emotionally, pulling for each other, caring for each other at a distance. And we don't do it perfectly by any means, and I understand that. We all have our moments. I have to tell you, 21 years ago in a malt shop in Minneapolis, I said to a woman I barely knew, hey, we should get married. And there was this pause, and my wife looked at me and said, maybe? And all of a sudden it became very real on the first date. So I, being a very mature, grown-up adult person, did this. I immediately went, oh wait, I know that person, and I jumped up from the table and I went to another table and started talking to somebody I knew. I panicked and I bolted. Relationships are sometimes like that, especially new ones. We are imperfect in relationship, which doesn't mean we don't keep working at it. We try, we fail, and we try some more. We're all in this together, not out of obligation, but in love. And we can't do it perfectly. No one can. That's in the Godhead. But for the rest of us, in our belief and our disbelief, in our trying and in our failing, we continue. We keep trying. We keep getting called. And that is what it is to be in practice. Amen.